All right. Well, let me kind of bring us back in, and yeah, I think that might be something that's new for many people. A new idea. And so we've got resources in all of our breakouts, and the one we have here is called Family Worship. It's by Don Whitney, who was one of our professors in seminary, and he just it's not a scary book, right? Look at that. It's not too intimidating. Some of you who love to read could probably read it in one sitting, right? But yeah, just a helpful kind of overview of that idea. So I invite you all to come get one at the end. And I believe, as Wes mentioned, he's got some examples, especially towards the younger end, of good family devotions to help lead. If you're like, hey, I just want to go through something that's prepackaged, I can literally just open it and work on reading that with my kids. I think these are some great options that Wes has for us. So I'm early in this task for myself, right? I've got two sons now, 28-month-old. Okay, that's enough months you can, right? No. Well, he's not 2 anymore, right? He's definitely not 24 months old at this point, like very different from when he was 2, but still 2 months till he's 22 and a half. So, and that's 8% of his life. So he's not 2 and a half yet. So he's a 2 3/3-year-old, in other words. And then Philip, who is 11 months old. So I'm still very early, right, in trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to raise my kids in a way that's shaping their hearts towards faith and faithfulness to God. But then I also get to, of course, serve as a youth pastor, coming alongside, kind of seeing a lot with families, with teens, with that whole side of things, then seeking to come alongside, supporting parents and families in that task. And one of the things that is very clear to me is, as Chris has mentioned already, how many competing visions there are for what we want for our kids. There's so many things that we want for them, right? We want their happiness. We want their success. We want their safety. All these different things that we want that are good. But as we kind of get rolling, I just want to reinforce for us that the most important task you have as a parent is to lay the foundations of a gospel framework and guide your child into the development of his or her faith. So with all those things, all those desires we have for them, I would just say to you, the most important task we have is to lead them into that understanding of the gospel and then help guide them in the development of their faith. So that's going to be kind of that big driving idea behind this second part of our family discipleship breakout. And so we'll have just a few kind of key ideas I want to get into. First off, parents are the primary disciple maker in the child's life. It's going to be kind of the first thing we look at a little bit of all the people. Parents, number one. Second, we're going to talk a little bit about the aim being heart change, not just behavior change. So again, some reinforcement of some things we've heard. And then lastly, we're going to talk about faith conversations and wanting to see faith conversations being just a normal part of our Christian homes. So let's start. Parents are the primary disciple maker. So when it comes to who is raising our kids spiritually, who is investing in them, yes, Wes and I, the church, we're here. We want to support. We want to come alongside you. But who's going to have the most influence? Parents. Parents have so much more. On a good week, Wes and I get 2 or maybe 3 hours with the kids in our care. Of course, it's divided among 30, 40, 50 others, but we do our best to love on all of them. But you all have them throughout the week, all that time. Now, of course, we have to think back, what is discipleship even? Maybe that's a foundational piece we need to think. And so I appreciate Wes giving us this definition. And maybe we need the remedial course before this one of just discipleship, right? And am I growing in my faith? Or how do I lead someone else to grow in my faith? But then, of course, specifically, we want to apply that to children. And how am I raising my children in faith? So don't outsource your calling. This is a call that God has placed on your life to raise your kids. And again, we're going to keep saying parent, but maybe you're not here as a parent. Maybe you're here as a grandparent, aunt, uncle, whoever else. All of us have an important role to play for those under our care and influence. So maybe a familiar verse. I don't know what that came in there. Start a youth out on his way, and even when he grows old, he will not depart from it. We had that unpacked a little bit for us. But that calling, right, that challenge or great kind of instruction given to us to invest in our our kids, start them out. At the same time, I've been around long enough to maybe I don't necessarily, are we supposed to read this as a promise, because there's a challenge, right? We see this a lot, that sometimes even though we've invested, sometimes they choose to wander, right? Even though we've loved, we've prayed, we've cared. Sometimes we don't always see it play out exactly like that. Well, I was encouraged when I was attending kids camp as a church intern, helping lead the group. And the camp director kind of pulled all the leaders in to start the week. And he challenged us. He said, okay, here's our vision for children's ministry. Do we believe that God will save those who are his, that he will carry them through? And he pointed to Philippians 1:6, which says, I'm sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. And he said, okay, so if we believe this, then the number one task we have is to make sure that they know the gospel by the time they are finished. We're finished with our time. Of course, he was talking about our week of camp or them being in our children's ministry. But hopefully for us, as they grow through their time in our homes, that they would know the gospel. And so this call to family discipleship maybe is a little intimidating, right? It's a pretty lofty thing. It's a high call, a high task. But the encouragement here is the God of the universe is on our side as we go through that he is supporting us and that he is actually even more committed to their good than we are, and especially their spiritual good. So let that be our confidence as we go into this task. All right, so our second key principle, we aim for heart change, not just behavior change. Wes mentioned we're not just aiming for moral kids, right? That's not all we're looking for. We're not just trying to polish them up and make them look good. We truly want to see the gospel change their heart. The heartbeat behind this is that we all know that ultimately it's not our works that save us, right? I want to jump ahead to Galatians 2. This verse, I think, really encapsulates the gospel in a lot of ways. It says, I've been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. So obviously you see kind of the positive call of the gospel. And the second verse kind of gets to this idea that we're not just trying to make them behave right? Now, we want them to behave, but it says, I do not set aside the grace of God, for if righteousness could be gained through the law, Christ died for nothing. Our work isn't just to make them behave, because if we could earn our way, why did Jesus even die? Why did he even come to save us? But instead, we want them to be finding their life in Christ. That's the call. Now, there's a lot of sides to that. Ephesians 6 is one that Wes mentioned earlier. Let's look at verse 4 real quick. I'm kind of starting to live this out a little bit. Fathers, don't stir up anger in your children, or other translations say don't provoke your kids or exasperate your kids, but bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. I mentioned I have a toddler, right? So sanctification is very real in my life right now as I'm learning how to live this out. When, the third time, I told you not to push your 11-month brother over, and here we are again. Now how do I respond to this in a way that's going to help you understand in your heart why I shouldn't do that? And how do I do it in a way that's not going to exasperate or crush his spirit, right? I don't want to do that. I want to build him up in joy and confidence, and I want to see that liveliness in him. But I do want to see his behavior change too. So, we all walk through this, right? Challenges. So, how does heart change happen? How do we approach this in a way to actually see heart change? And so that's where I want to get into this part about faith conversations. Basically, what I mean by this is I want talking about Jesus to be a normal thing for us in our homes. That we would just learn how to talk about Jesus, and that it wouldn't be odd, it wouldn't feel weird or be like uncomfortable, but that it would just be normal. That we would just do it. We've mentioned Deuteronomy 6 a couple times already. And so picking up at verse 7, impress them on your children, talking about the commandments of the Lord. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. Wes mentioned tying them as symbols and binding them on your foreheads. You can make an argument for tattoos if you want to. Just kidding. Don't reference me on that. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. That's kind of, here's your Hobby Lobby artwork, right? Right there on the wall. Again, all these things to remind us about the gospel. And then I love this. Jumping ahead to verse 20. In the future, when your son asks you, what is the meaning of the stipulations, decrees, and laws the Lord our God has commanded you? So one day, he finally says, wait, what are all these things, Dad? Like, why do we keep talking about these things? And then you get to tell him, we were slaves of Pharaoh in Egypt, but the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. Remember what God did. Here's that opportunity. You finally get to talk about it. So again, like I said, I love that, verse 7, like everywhere you go, just let that be part of your conversation. Let that be something you talk about, that it's normal to share about your faith with your kids. At the start of the year, our teens in high school, one of the questions I asked was, do y'all have any resolutions this year? I know a lot of people think they're cheesy. I'm on board with them. I call them goals. It feels cooler. But I set one, and I told them about this, and I asked for their prayers. Like, Will likes to read books, but and I've got some of these over here at home, but haven't really gotten into like reading any of these Bibles with him yet. A goal would just be that maybe we could read a little bit of these, biblical things together, and that he would, be open to it, right? And so, of course, some of them are kind of long. Like he's used to, we read a whole book when we sit down because it's usually short and fast, and I can't read the whole Bible with you at once, Will. I'm sorry. So I had to make him. I had to think like, what can I do about this? So it's like, Will, have you ever heard of a bookmark? And he was like, kind of like, I was like, it's something you put in your book when you finish reading, and then the next day you find it and you keep reading right there. And so we went to my office and picked out a bookmark, which was just a business card or something. And now every night he's like, find my bookmark? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And so we keep kind of working through. And it's been exciting and kind of fun to see him actually respond to that. But he's getting creative. Like he knows I want to read those, so he'll pick out 2 or 3 other ones first, and usually I'm like, okay, that was 3, we're done for the night. He's like, no, we got to read the Bible still, and can't say no to that. So he's good at stalling. Okay, so you got a 2-year-old. Good job, Caleb. But what about like the preteen years, right? Or what about the teen years, or when they start entering adulthood? How do we handle that? If it were easy, we wouldn't be here, right? But I want to kind of recommend a book for you all called Growing With. The subtitle up here, Every Parent's Guide to Helping Teenagers and Young Adults Thrive in Their Faith, Family, and Future. And it kind of helpfully breaks down some stages. And this picks up at 13. So I know a lot of y'all have younger kids. But I think some of the things apply. And then it breaks it down to 3 stages. So from 13 to about 18 calls kids learners. From 18 to 23-ish, explorers. Obviously, they're kind of broadening their horizons, trying out new things. And then 24-ish, 29-ish, he calls it focusers, when we finally have to grow up and figure out what we're going to do with our lives, right? So he recommends, as parents, we have to fill out sort of different roles. First, we're more of the teacher. We're helping guide them. We're helping show them these things and explain these things. We move into more of a guide role, and then finally a resourcer. So it really breaks down some helpful things. I've got a little handout for you, though, that Lauren and Wes are going to pass around, specifically speaking to the learner stage. Because when they're in that learning stage as teens, we really want to do that not in a way that's like lecturing them, sort of teaching, right? We want to do it in a way that's really helping them process things, helping have conversations around these topics. And I love how so much of the discussion, I think, in our previous breakout or our previous main session, I think some other breakouts even are just talking about building connection with your kids, building that openness. And so these questions that I'm giving you, I think are good questions to help us prepare for that, because I wish I could sit here and tell you how to connect with each of your kids represented, right? But it's going to be unique for every single one of them. There's going to be kind of unique ways that they love to connect with you, that they love to spend time with you. You as parent in their life, you're going to connect uniquely with them. But I do think these questions are really helpful. So if you're a journaler, this would be a great way to maybe spend a morning or an evening journaling in response to this, maybe even periodically, thinking about each of your kids and how do I, where is my child growing? How do I affirm their progress? Great question to think about. This phrase, growing with, comes straight from the book, but given my commitment to growing with my child, what are new ways I might try to connect with my child in this new stage? And I won't read all those, but obviously you can see these are questions that will really help you just think about, how do I build that connection? And how do I have conversations that are going to allow me to pass this along, to aim for heart change in their life, to speak the gospel in meaningful ways into their lives? So again, good resources I would recommend with that, and hopefully those questions can be helpful for you. But I want to just wrap up with, and again, there's so much more we could get into, and what y'all got in this breakout is essentially kind of, I think for me and Wes, the heart behind this whole conference that we've done. And it really, there's so much more that we'd love to explore kind of moving forward. So hoping for more opportunities to do that moving forward. So again, what we want to leave you with, though, hopefully is just kind of an appetite that's kind of whetted for this idea, right? That I, as a parent, want to raise my kids towards a lifelong relationship with Jesus. So again, the most important task you have as a parent is to lay the foundations of a gospel framework and guide your child in the development of his or her faith. So I love thinking about what that could look like in our church, for our families, for the kids. As we see parents, again, supported by the church, raising them towards faithfulness in Jesus. So again, Wes and I are here as a resource to you all. Please never hesitate to reach out to us if there's ways that we can support you, encourage you, help you work through things. That's what we're here for. That's what we love to do. So any questions as we kind of draw close to wrapping up for either of us? Wes would love to answer your questions. Is everyone awake still? One left. There you go. I had to make it printable without killing all the ink in our printer. Well, as I mentioned, we have a book up here for you, and we would love for y'all to come grab a copy. Don't leave too many, because we had a bet going that we would have more attendees than the mental health panel, and it's going to make us look really bad. I think we've already lost the 5 guys. We owe them 5 guys, but it is what it is. So, but thank you all for attending. I hope this is helpful. I hope you all have enjoyed this whole conference today. And yeah, we look forward to doing more of this in the future.